Welcome to this video, round 1 coverage of the candidates tournament in Kantimansisk, and we are looking at the game Karjakin against Svidler, two of the sort of mid-tier players in this tournament who sort of are not heavy favorites, but certainly are capable of doing good things if they start well in this tournament. An early win can often get you going. All right, so a bit surprising for me is that Svidler is playing this variation here. He goes for a Sicilian, and he plays the mostly called Taimanov variation here with knight c6. This is one of the lines that has more than one name. There are also people calling it the Paulsen variation and others. It's not one of the regular lines that Svidler is playing. He's playing, if he goes for the Sicilian, he's playing the Khan variation with e6 and a6, or he's playing the knight off. And okay, he is also a 1e4, e5 double king pawn player. These are double king pawn and the knight off are his main openings. But okay, he's doing something different here. Knight c6. He has played it before. It's not like completely a new opening, but it's nothing that I guess was very high on the list of openings that Karjakin had prepared here. So knight c3, queen c7, bishop e3. Yeah, this signals White's intention to set up a position that is typically called the English attack, with queen to d2, later f3, g4, long castles. It's called the English attack because it was introduced and popularized. Probably introduced is the wrong word, because there were people playing it even in the 1970s, but in the 1980s by British players, Nigel Short, John Nunn, Murray Chandler, a couple of strong British GMs. They had played this successfully, mostly against the knight off, but it has been becoming even more popular nowadays against all kinds of Sicilian setups, and also against the Taimanov. Svidler is playing a6 here. Here black actually has a choice. He can play a6 or knight f6. In the early days of this line, a6 has been more popular, but in recent years knight f6 has gained some momentum. The idea is that if white goes for this quick queenside castles, then black quickly gets play with bishop b4. He's also playing like that with a6, but it's not clear that a6 is a move that he necessarily needs to play here. So the idea is in a way to save a tempo in the fight for the center. And it has turned out that White's most popular move against knight f6 nowadays is the move f4, sort of mixing systems. Of course, f4 in the Sicilian is a pretty common move, but White is now abandoning the idea of going for this English setup with f3 and g4. And the reason why I'm telling all this is Svidler actually played a6, the older move, after which queen d2 was played, knight f6. And now in this position, absolutely by far the most popular move is long castles, after which black normally plays bishop b4, and then we have something like this f3, and now the most popular way to play is to move this knight to e5 or to e7, possibly intending to play d5. Note that it is not really advisable, if you look at this position, for black to play d6. This transposes to something typically called a Scheveningen formation with e6 and d6. But here in this line where white quickly pushes on the king side, the move queen c7, which is quite normal looking, is simply too slow. This is not a good line for black. If you play this Taimanov setup with the bishop still being able to go to b4, against this line you really shouldn't play d6 and use this bishop opportunities. Karjakin, however, didn't play long castle. He played the move f4. And of course, what I'm telling now is the result of some research, because I'm not an expert, but I learned that this is actually a rare move, f4, which surprised me. It looked perfectly normal to me, but it is rarely played. Probably the idea to play it was popping up here because of the other f4 idea that I showed before, in the position where actually a6 and queen e2 was not played. So this is a new twist in this opening, or let's say an unexplored twist, less explored twist. I found like 20 games with this move. Svidler played b5. Yeah, perfectly logical, typical Sicilian move. The alternative is of course bishop b4, as you probably have guessed from the other positions that I've shown. Now there's an instant threat on e4, and white also cannot really go forward, as knight e4 is terribly awkward for white. So you need to protect your center. Bishop d3, and here probably black has more than one opportunity, but the recent game that I found from the open tournament in Gibraltar was played with knight a5 after a3. Now bishop takes, queen takes,
check,
queen takes, b takes, and d5. Black had quite a solid position. This was played between the French Grandmaster Edouard, very strong GM, 2660 around Elo, against one of the top female players of Georgia. This is a terrible name to pronounce for me. Yavakishvili. Yavakishvili. Tricky, without any practice before. And she managed to draw this game, still being 200 points lower rated. This is an alternative that could have happened, but Svidler didn't play bishop b4, he played b5. And now on move 8, which is pretty early, we are already in pretty little explored territory. There are only about, I don't know, I think I found 8 or 9 games with this. So probably, I guess, a position that they didn't analyze heavily at home. Note the clock times. They both haven't used much time up to now, but now it after a couple of moves they will start to spend time. Yeah, Karjakin played e5 now, which is, I guess, the logical move. What else is there? Black is threatening b4, winning the pawn on e4. And you don't really want to play bishop d3 here. It does not make so much sense. So e5 is the way to go. It attacks the knight and it does not have any central squares to go. Here Svidler played knight g4. Also fairly normal looking move. There also is b4 here. An interesting counter attack that initiates a funny transformation in the position, as white of course does not want to move the knight. If he okay, let's say he does not want to move it back. White's best move, and the move played here, is knight b5, but you don't want to move it back. For example, let's say here, giving black this excellent square on d5. So white, oops, sorry, after b4 he just plays knight b5 in order to gain those tempos on the queen, and only then take on f6. Yeah, and here after e takes f6, g takes f6, we have reached a position that has been played only last year between two strong younger grandmasters. White player was Eric Hansen from Canada, very promising Canadian player, and Sam Shankland from the US, who you also might know. He has played a couple of US championships successfully. Both are around 2,600 rated. Yeah, this is a very complicated position, obviously, where we have equal material but a completely unequal position. White has 3 against 1 pawn here on the queen side. It's a messy position, the king on e8. And in this game, it turned out to be good for white, but it was a very tough fight that was happening between those two players. So this is what Svidler did not play. He played knight g4, and look at the clock. He was playing really quickly. So he had some sort of preparation for this. Karjakin played bishop g1 also quickly. Yeah, this is a pretty much forced move. You cannot allow black to take on e3. It's giving up 2 bishops for no compensation, and it's not just the bishop thing, it's the dark squares. You cannot afford to give up this bishop, so bishop g1 is forced. It's not a big deal to get it back to the back rank. White will castle long anyway, and white will also win time against this knight, and then the bishop might get back into play again. That's no problem to have it back on g1. Yeah, bishop b7, yeah, pretty much a what else kind of move. The long diagonal. This is black's trump card. After white has well, this is an awkward arrow. No, it's the long diagonal. After white has pushed e5, this is obviously wide open, and this is where black needs to initiate his play. Yeah, long castles was played, and now Svidler took on d4. What black absolutely must avoid is a situation where white has played h3 and g4 and the knight is stuck on h6. I can just, to show the general idea, he played bishop e7, bishop b3, and here Svidler already took very strong measures against this happening. Let me just show what I'm talking about. If, let's say, black would castle, just for argument's sake, white plays move like h3, knight to here, and rook g1, just to have the idea shown. If black now plays a nothing move like that, white will play g4, and this knight is in absolutely terrible shape. It has no square to go to, and white has all the makings of a heavy kingside attack coming, f5 and so on. So you must take some measures to make sure that you're not getting into trouble with this knight on g4. And Svidler is playing a very direct move against that f5. Note now they both had 35 minutes spent, though they're on their own now. Cannot rely on concrete preparation. He played f5 as mentioned, and this is in fact a move that I personally like, but it's if you look at it with the computer, let's say I use Houdini 4 multi-processing version, the pro version, whatever. So pretty strong engine on a strong computer, and it does not like the move. It does not want to play it. But after having analyzed it a bit, I'm not quite so sure why it doesn't like it. It gives white a slight edge after that. I personally like it because it does do 2 things. It makes sure that the knight has a return route. It blocks the bishops nicely. Yeah, okay, white can take en passant. We can look at this shortly. And what it also does, which I also like, white in this position cannot use the e4 square anymore, like knight e4 at some stage is not possible because the pawn is just controlling the square. Yeah, and white can take to open up the bishops, and note that in this closed structure both bishops are looking at yeah, a wall of pawns, so this is not an entirely illogical move. But look at this, it happens that this is almost forced, and black has nothing to complain about here. He's got a good knight on f6 now. It has returned from g4, nicely protecting the king side, and black has decent play. This is a good diagonal. You have b4 coming, nothing special to fear here. So the capture is very untesting. Yeah, I think Karjakin is playing it just better, not taking. He played h3 and sent the knight back to h6. Rook g1. Yeah, very logical. You need to play g4 at some stage. And Svidler just castled. And now queen to e3. It's funny, if you look at the database, you will actually find exactly 1 game where this position was on the board. But I don't think that the players were aware of that. was a game between a player, I think he's from an Austrian player called Schrott, against Kulutis. Player with 2450 is black, and the white player was the 2050 player. So black was a heavy favorite and won the game later. In this game, they had played king b1 instead of queen e3. It was quite comparable to the main game, but I don't think that we are talking about home prep here. They spent far too much time to that. So it's just a coincidence that those moves had been played before. And they are very logical. I mean, some of them were forced and the others really are the first moves you can think of. So queen e3 was Karjakin's move. And this is probably a multi-purpose move. It controls c5, so black cannot easily play bishop c5, for example. I don't really think this was a threat, but this is one idea, to have the bishop here on this diagonal, or support the bishop for possible action on this diagonal. The queen might swing over to g3 after g4 has played, and it also increases the influence on the center a bit. Yeah, Svidler played rook c8, very normal looking move. And now king b1. Yeah, this is one of those cases where you feel inclined to play this move to cover a2, for example. If you look at the further course of the game where a bishop appears on d5 later, there will always be this a2 pawn hanging. So he protected this in advance. Bishop c6. Yeah, a move that allows queen b7, emphasizing the long diagonal, and after b4 it is made sure that white has not knight a4 available. So now he went knight e2, retreating the knight just before b4 was coming. In fact, here the computer has an interesting suggestion which I really like. It wants to play somewhat differently. g4, g6, which is pretty normal, but now it comes up with the idea to play rook d2, and this is an interesting idea. It has it's a multi-purpose move. The rook might come handy on the second rank. If you think about g5 and h4, you might have rook h2 to further support the h-pawn. Note that h1 is always controlled by the bishop, so you cannot just put the rook on h1. This is one idea, and the second idea of rook d2 is that after b4 you can drop the knight back to d1, which is in fact quite clever, I believe, because if you look at b4, I'm not quite sure that this is even such a great move, to be honest. If you look at b4, it has one drawback: it weakens the c4 square, and white now has the idea to play something like that. Let's say here, 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 the knight to b2. So the knight will get some good square on c4. A very interesting positional idea, which I believe that black should be aware of, and he probably, I'm not sure if he should play b4 even. Maybe it's better to do some more preparation work so that knight d1 to b2 to c4 at the end is not coming so quickly. But I don't think that black necessarily needs to play b4 at this exact moment. He can also play other moves to improve the position. Let's say queen b7, for example, just for argument's sake. Yeah, white still has those ideas. I mean, it feels like maybe white has a little bit of pressure here. I like this more than Karjakin's move. He played, as mentioned, knight e2, sort of prophylactically moving it away. But now bishop d5, g4, g6. Now he played b3. Yeah, probably being a bit unsure if bishop c4 is a move you should prevent or not. So he put a pawn on b3 to control the square. I think that here it's not so evident if if white really has something. If he pushes with g5, for example, and you look at this position, there is this queen a5 counterplay. And this is really serious. If white plays something like b3, for example, you might even get the knight back into the game and actually attack white. So it's there is some point to playing b3 here. So this is what he did. Now queen b7. Yeah, with some ideas, it opens up the c file for the rook. We'll see a tactical point of that later. Another idea might be that you actually have those squares now for the bishop, so this might come in handy as well. Played rook to f1, covering f3 amongst others. Again, he's not going for g5. After this, here for example, I don't know if I like this move. Maybe this is a possibility, but it looks strange. Just to stop h5, but after this you don't really have a good square. No, probably not that. Yeah, maybe black can play d6 here. Yeah, but it would open up this diagonal, right? Yeah, it was still interesting to do that. I mean, what I actually believe is that Karjakin played, to be honest, he played too many prep moves. He maybe should just play g5 and see what happens. Played rook f1 as mentioned, just another prep move. And now Svidler went a5. Yeah, what else is there? Need to do something on the queen side. And now knight g3 was played. So again, not g5. Yeah, and here Svidler played a really surprising move. I was really taken aback by that. He played a bishop to c4. And really strange, but yeah, it has some point. White has this bishop on d3, and yeah, black probably will just initiate an exchange here. White cannot take. This is a check, and it gets awkward. So yeah, what is actually White's move here? Karjakin responded with a very cunning cunning reply. Yeah, he played bishop to e4, just putting it on this controlled square, and this really surprised me. But yeah, he did that. I mean, he does not need to play this move. He can play other things. He can now play g5. It does not make so much sense, to be honest, in connection with all those moves like rook f1, but you can do it and initiate a fight here. Probably a4, yeah, and yeah, it gets interesting. Black has some attack on his own, and it's not like black is mated quickly here. He has some good defensive pieces as well. And those pieces here, they can only be used against black's king by sacrificing on f5 or h5 and things like that. So it's entirely unclear. He played bishop e4, as mentioned. This is really quite a shock. Yeah, and here we come to the point where Svidler is the one to decide what to do. Because he can play bishop d5, which he did. After some thought, after bishop d3, he played bishop c4 to repeat moves. The thing is, after bishop e4, black now, look that Svidler had 10 minutes more on the clock. He could have played takes, of course. It's an interesting move, just taking the bishop off. And it leads to yeah, really unclear play. B takes, rook takes. Yeah, white needs to get the piece back, so he must take. Rook takes, knight takes on e4. And this is a completely unclear position. I mean, the computer gives black slightly the better chances here, but to be honest, it is really completely unclear. You have a situation where you don't like this knight here. White has f5 as a possible attacking idea, knight f6 as an idea. But of course, it's not like black is without any play. He can play rook c8 here, for example, directly attacking. He can play something like that to go on a2. So it's getting really sharp. And yeah, the thing is, Svidler didn't do it. He didn't, I don't know, had the courage or whatever, was content with the draw in the first round, and he played bishop d5 back to complete a threefold repetition. I don't think the game is shown drawn here. I'm not sure if this is correct. I think they should repeat one more time to make it a threefold. Yeah, bit of a disappointing quick end to this game, which could have been really interesting if Svidler decided to fight on with f takes e4 instead of allowing the repetition. I think one important point is really it is the first round, and you hate to lose the first round to make it an uphill struggle. So I understand that you probably don't want to risk it all, but at some point you have to win games. So and take some chances. So a bit of a disappointing end to this game. All right, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. An interesting fight, at least for the first 20 something moves. Thanks for watching.